Good morning everyone, welcome back to another Ramble the Mad God video. And today's gonna be another commentary one. I was thinking about doing a post commentary for this video, but I don't know, I just feel like doing live commentary for this one just because from what I've heard you guys are actually more satisfied with live commentary than you are with post commentary. So I figured that's what we're gonna be doing for this video, so I do apologize if it is rambly once again because, you know, live commentary is never meant to be very cohesive to begin with. But I am about to pop a couple of keys. Where are my DDoS keys? And I thought, why not? Let's record and also talk about a specific topic I have in mind today. That being said, it is early in the morning, like almost about 9 o'clock, so I just wanted to... What are they doing? Oh, there's a DDoS back here. So I do apologize if there's a little bit of... if my voice is not up to snuff for right now. Okay. So in this video, I wanted to talk to you guys about sort of how I like to max out my characters, because I do have quite a bit, almost about I think 46 8/8s, and a lot of people have been asking me how I'm able to max out all these characters so quickly because some people can't sustain more than like maybe 2 to 3, sometimes 4 or 5 8/8s. This is like one of those cases, especially in Realm, where it's like, you guys know how in the real world, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, right? Because rich people, people with money, people with wealth, can use that wealth to build more wealth, whereas people who are poor don't really... That is a really cute pet. Oh my goodness, that's adorable. But where was I? Right. It takes money to make money, right? It's very difficult for you to make money from scratch without investing a lot of time into the game, right? Well, I say game, I meant life. Well, life is technically a game. It's kind of the same in Realm, where the first couple 8/8s you get, and like your first couple sets of gear you pick up will be the hardest ones to do, but then after that it gets really easy. Like with 1 8/8 you could easily make another 5. It's just also depends on how safe you are in the game. There are some players who like to try to push their luck a little bit too much in my opinion. I oftentimes see a lot of characters die for no particular reason other than just either neglect or like ignorance, or sometimes even a little bit of not necessarily, kind of like a lapse in judgment. For instance, sure, everything in the game is pretty deadly, right? You can get killed by a lot of things, but many of them are avoidable, right? You don't have to get, sure. Probably the biggest example would be Oryx 2. I understand that, oh my goodness, that's a lot of dudes. I understand that Oryx 2 is not really the safest boss for melee classes in particular, but I've seen even ranged classes like priests or sorcerers, necros, wizards, mystics, they've all been getting destroyed by Oryx, and that to me makes very little sense because there should be no reason for you to get killed by those things. See, part of me, I'm not entirely sure how much of this game is more on just knowing what can or can't kill you, or how much of it is like motor control. I understand there's some people who don't have as good reflexes or reaction speeds as some others, but it's not like you're playing Touhou, right? This is a bullet hell game, but you're not playing Touhou levels of bullet hell where you have to dodge literally everything that comes your way. So in that sense, I think it's just a matter of like, if you're really trying to max out a character, you really need to play safer. It's not that difficult. See, it sucks to have to Nexus when you're in a void or a cult or a nest or something like that and you're taking heavy fire, but remember, like whatever you get, whatever drops in that dungeon is nice, right? But your character is probably nicer. So I've always been a fan of live to fight another day, right? Let's say some people would be like, what if that dungeon was when you get an Omni? I mean, like, yeah, but you died, so it doesn't matter. That's like the number one advice I have for people who are like really trying to build up a good amount of characters, even if you don't have a good pet. Like, sure, I do have a divine pet, but I didn't always have one. I only got it recently. I've lived on mostly like a 70 heal, 70 M heal, and that's about it. You don't really need a pet. This community has this sentiment towards like, you need a pet or else you cannot play the game. They help, right? They're definitely quite helpful, but you don't need one. 9 times out of 10, if you die, it's not because your pet didn't regen you hard enough, it's just because you got one-shotted by like 5 or 6 bullets. Let's actually get into the topic of the video on how I like to max out my characters. Just like everyone else, I spent my first 1 or 2 8/8s just grinding, first main hook. I spent my first 1 or 2 8/8s, sometimes even 3 or 4 8/8s, just purely doing nothing but grinding Sprite World, Snake Pit, Undead Lair, Demon Abyss, a little bit of Toxic Sewers. I did have friends that I went with though. You get what I mean, just like the Godland dungeons. They're pretty simple to come by, and at this point, it's really difficult to die in those dungeons, let's be real. Like, it doesn't require too many... you don't have to jump through too many hoops to take care of those dungeons. Maybe Demon Abyss might be the most devastating one, or like the most threatening one, but you don't really have to do Demon Abyss because defense is obtainable through Mad Lab or Toxic Sewers, which are both, I would say, more... Some people argue that Demon Abyss or Toxic Sewers is harder than Demon Abyss, but I actually think Toxic Sewers is easier because even though the dungeon's really slow and annoying, right, and it's also pretty long, and there's also the Sickening debuff, which could be quite dangerous, it's also not a dungeon that, like, in Demon Abyss, the enemies in there, they rush you, right? They can chase you into another room, which is like the damage output is a lot higher, whereas in Toxic Sewers, you just have to take your time. And Vitality you don't really need, unless you're playing, like, unless you don't have a good pet. In that case, I'll say Vitality actually comes in handy, but you don't really need Vitality to begin with too much to an extent. And so therefore, most of the dungeons that you can go into are, you know, you can go into, what's it called? Magic Woods, you can go into the Puppet Master's Theater. That's a pretty easy dungeon to take on if you just like play really safe. I would recommend for your first two 8/8s to play only ranged characters. It's not a very good idea to go only melee. For instance, one of my friends, he really wanted to play a warrior, and like, I get it, bro. I really do. I like warrior is a really fun class. I enjoy playing it myself. But I would recommend your first 8/8, the first characters that you decide to max out to be ranged characters, or more specifically, safe characters. So like, Necromancer. Necromancer is a perfect 8/8. I actually, my first character that I maxed out was a Necro, because he's very self-sufficient, right? You don't really need a party to help you out. He's got range, he's got damage, and he has AoE crowd control and sustain. That's like probably the best class you can go for. The second option would be Priest, or the third option would be Archer. Archer doesn't have nearly as much sustenance as the former two, but he does have a quiver that can help make it really easy for you to kite enemies back from a far distance, and he's pretty good at farming in Godlands. After you get your first two 8/8s or so, it should be a lot easier for you to get into the public dungeons. So if you haven't been aware of this, there are a lot of Discord servers in the Realm community that focus on hosting organized raids for specific dungeons. For example, there's the Lost Halls dungeon, there's the Nest dungeon, which I believe is called Pest Control. There's a dungeon Discord for Shatters. There's one for Fungal Cavern. So if you're trying to take on the endgame dungeons, but you don't necessarily feel safe going at it in a small group of people, then you can always feel free to join those servers. A lot of them require you to have at least 1 or 2 8/8s. To get your first 2 8/8s, it'll be difficult for you to see, like this guy right here, Minglight. There's no reason an 8/8 should be dead in DDoX. Like, I don't know what this guy did to die in DDoX, but he obviously wasn't doing something right. There should be zero reason for you to die in a DDoX. It's just physically impossible, unless you completely neglect your surroundings and just don't pay attention, to die on an 8/8. I just don't think it's possible to die on an 8/8 in DDoX. Stuff like that. You need to be more aware of your surroundings. That's like all it takes. You shouldn't be dying to things like these. This is how a lot of people have a hard time getting classes to 8/8 or maxing out multiple characters, because you keep dying to dumb shit, pardon my French. Even dungeons that are known to be difficult for newer players, like I can probably do 100 DDoX on a 0/8 without dying. It's not that difficult, especially with this many people. You're perfectly safe. There's nothing you have to worry about. But you still have to be aware of your surroundings, or else you'll end up like that guy. I actually do plan to release a video soon on the best dungeons for each potion, and so I hope you guys are looking forward to that. But the way I did it was, in the beginning, I focused on Puppet Master Theater for attack, and for defense, I did Mad Lab, the second part of Mad Lab, because the second boss for Mad Lab, he does drop a defense potion if you're lucky, and also Condu Wand, which is nice. Oh, what happened? Okay. And then for speed, obviously Snake Pit, you can do a trillion Snake Pits. It's super easy. Like, once again, if you die in a Snake Pit, there's no excuse for that. You just have no excuse to die in a Snake Pit. Sprite World. I actually think Sprite World could be a little bit more threatening, because Limon, the Sprite Goddess, does do a decent amount of damage. But she drops a dex, and she also could drop a defense. Not only that, but the Sprite Gods in Sprite World could drop attack potions. So I actually went and did full clears of every Sprite World to try to see if I could get my hands on the attack pots. Wisdom, Mad Lab, and Undead Lair, both very good. UDL, I think if you don't know what every enemy does, if you don't, then feel free. There's a really good channel called BikuriBox12. He does make a lot of good guide videos, especially for dungeons. And he covered all the Godland dungeons, so I recommend you check those out. That's how I got into the game myself. I watched his dungeon videos, and they helped me a bit. Vitality, Abyss of Demons, like I said, Demon Abyss is a little bit difficult, or it's a little more threatening than most other dungeons. Not necessarily because of the fact that it's hard to go through, It's just that everything can kill you very quickly. So once again, that's why I recommend a class like Priest or Necromancer, because Necromancer does wonderfully in full clear Demon Abysses. Obviously, you can't rush on a Necro in Demon Abyss unless you're really, really good, or have like really good gear and a really strong pet, but it's great for clearing because there's a lot of enemies that like to rush you all at once, and then you can just take them out very slowly while hitting all of them with your skull to keep your HP good. And then for life and mana, it was a little harder. Back then, it was not as easy to obtain life potions and mana potions because we didn't have an overabundance of public popping in terms of like people popping keys in Nexus. So I did have to go through dungeons like Crawling Depths, Ocean Trench. I remember one of my friends, he had a bunch of OT keys. Life pots, obviously Tomb of the Ancients. You can never go wrong with Tomb of the Ancients. Although right now, DDoX. DDoX is a great way to get life pots because they're not as high of a drop rate, but DDoX can drop Dex, Speed, and life pots. And I do have a tendency to actually get all three of them sometimes if you have a loot clover. Take advantage of events. That's also how I recommend you max out characters, because if you see a huge amount of people popping keys in Nexus for dungeons like Ocean Trench, Tomb of the Ancients, DDoX, not necessarily Shatters. I wouldn't recommend maxing through Shatters. Shatters is not very consistent when it comes to drops, but look at that. 2 potions again, and a bunch of decent tiered equipment here. Like, if you're playing a PPE, DDoX is one of the best dungeons you can go into, because they drop a lot of mid to high tier equipment, and you get a lot of speed and dex, 2 stats that you want to max out right away. In that case, in particular, right now, at the time this video is released, there's a DDoX 1.5x drop rate event for, I think, Bard UTs, or if it's just like all overall. And because of the sheer amount of opportunities you have to get potions from these dungeons, just by following the crowd, all you gotta do is follow the crowd and just attack whatever they're attacking. Look at that, another speed and another dex. So I'm actually showing you guys kind of live commentary on, like, you know, in real time, how I max out a lot of my characters. We've done about 6 DDoX so far in this video, and I've already picked up almost like 15 potions. It's also easy to come by loot clovers because of how frequently they drop, especially if you do Tinker events or just by doing login attendance. So let's see what we get from this guy. A white bag, apparently we got a white bag, nice. What do we get? It's probably going to be the loot. I don't think it's the colors. Yeah, it's the loot. Nice. I have 2 of these concertinas back when I was spamming them when they were when Bard first came out, so I don't really need these as many, but you know, I'll take it anyway, it's still great. So, looking at the haul we got, that's about 5 dex pots and 6 speed, just by doing like 3 DDoX. So, that's another way you can max out your characters if you aren't playing the traditional way, because we are in an age where it is actually more effective to max out your characters through just sitting in Nexus and waiting for someone to pop a key than it is to just manually go and grind in Godlands, although there are cases where there are no events live, so therefore you are going to have to do some manual farming. But otherwise, yeah, it's a lot easier. Maxing a character has never been this easy. Back then it was so much harder. Like 8/8s actually meant something back then. Now, I don't go as like, ooh, that sucks if I see an 8/8 die. Like that guy that died in DDoX. In fact, I feel sorry for him just because you shouldn't really be dying in that dungeon. Another way I like to max out my characters, which you've seen in my chest popping videos, is just popping a bunch of Tinker quest chests. This entire upper section are just marks. All marks. And if you think like, oh my goodness, I don't have the vault space to get them, you don't have to worry about that because, like I said, in the public dungeons such as Lost Halls, Shatters, Nest, Crystal Cavern, things like that, you can easily get the required amount of marks to complete the epic quest chest, which is the most important chest you want to go for. These give you so many potions. Like one chest, if you have a loot clover, you can get up to like 8, maybe 10. The epic ones are the mighty ones are a little harder to come by. Obviously, there are not that many people who have the luxury to store all these marks in these chests, but if you have a lot of events, for example, like if there's a DDoX, since there's a DDoX event right now, and you have a DDoX quest, it is so easy to get 4 DDoX marks because you can probably go through like 30 to 50 in a single day. So what I did was, after getting my first 2 or 3 characters maxed out, I would then keep them on the side if I ever needed to, and then I would just slowly do something like this. And over time, just by playing a lot safer, I actually recommend, if you're just starting out, it's safe to assume that you have no idea what can or can't kill you, right? So what I actually did was, back then, I would play so passively to the point where I would Nexus if my HP dropped under half. Like, that's how passive I played. And to some people, they might be like, oh, that's such a waste because, you know, you can obviously survive a lot more if you just go down to like 25%. But remember, you don't want to take that chance. Your risk management has to be extremely tight for your first couple characters, because the hardest characters to max are your first couple. After that, it's super easy to max a character because you have a really strong character to continue farming these dungeons. A full 8/8 character can make Godland dungeons so trivial. Even Demon Abyss, like, once you get an 8/8, Demon Abyss is super easy to do on, like, any character. But a 0/8, Demon Abyss is a nightmare. It's impossible to do it unless you have the patience of a saint. So play safe for the first couple characters, and then after that, just grind a lot of these dungeons over and over again, especially if there's an event going on. Sit in Nexus. It's usually either US East 2, US South, sometimes US West, and I think US Midwest. Those 4 dungeons, or those 4 servers, are where you see a lot of people gathering to pop keys, and get into the public Discord servers to take on the higher level dungeons, because even for dungeons like, for instance, this guy popped a fungal cavern. Endgame dungeons can be quite scary if you don't know what you're doing, right? And the dungeons can kill you quite a bit. But I'm going to show you a little bit about how I like to play, assuming, like, the first time I played. Once again, play a long range character, and you see this mushroom. I actually still have no idea what these guys do. But I've done a ton of fungal caverns and I've never died in one, just because I play super far back, and especially if you play a priest with, with decent amount of defense, and then just follow the group. If the group is taking on a specific enemy, just back away and see if you can get a couple shots in, right? The further back you position, it's easier to see these shots coming. So you don't have to go too close to them. And just tread cautiously, like, don't start running in just because everyone is running forward. Don't run forward the same speed as them, just slowly inch your way forward and stay further back. And if you see a lot of players nexusing just out of panic, or if you see the player count just dramatically dropping, then nexus, because chances are something bad is happening. You don't know what is happening, but it's bad, right? So just err on the side of caution and nexus. You'll always be able to go into another fungal cavern or another lost halls. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal if you have to nexus. I don't care if you're at the boss, right? I don't care if you're at the very last phase of Void. If you got a bad feeling, just trust your instinct. If you feel like something bad is going to happen, or if you feel like just like people panicking or something like that, or if you see a spooky boy in Lost Halls, just nexus. There's no shame in nexusing. Ignore all the players who call you a beta cuck or something like that, or like some loser crap, because in the end, you're alive and they're probably going to die. So that's exactly how I like to play. In fact, some people actually criticized me in my earlier videos for playing way too passively, even with all the stuff I have, but that's just how I play. Like, I just don't see a reason why you have to play so risky. If you enjoy playing the game passively, and if you enjoy, growing and building your characters and not having to reset every 2 days, then this is exactly how you should play. Okay, no one's doing this fungal right. I'm out. Okay, I think that's it for this video. It was a big ramble video, but I guess I'll wrap it up in TLDR fashion. I kind of already did. So I think we'll leave it at that. But if you're watching this video right now, and if you're looking to max the character at the moment, we have a DDoS event and we have a Snake Pit event coming soon, as well as a Tomb of the Ancients. So that's an easy way to get speed, dex, life, like just those 3 stats are really good to come by. Once again, I recommend you play a safe ranged class with high sustain, like a Necromancer, or a Priest, or if you can, play an Archer. Wizard is a good class to play, but I don't recommend Wizard purely because of the fact that Wizard, while he has some of the highest DPS in the game, he's also one of the squishiest classes in the game. So play someone like a Necromancer. I think a Necromancer is basically a Priest that has less damage, but more survivability. That's just me. Yeah. Again, I'm really sorry if it came off really rambly or just if it wasn't a very structured video. I just felt like doing more live commentary. Maybe I should practice a bit more because I'm not very good at commentating while playing a game, at least when I'm trying to make a video. If I'm live streaming, I can obviously stay on a decent conversation with someone, but if I'm just talking to myself, it's not as easy. It doesn't come to me as well. So I'll work on it, but thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next video. Take care.